sometimes there is a big idea or a big dream that grips you. And you say that, look, I'm going to figure out a way to do this. I don't know how, when, or by what means, but I'm going to figure out a way to do this. So that one idea has gripped me since 2019. I did my first Ironman in Israel in 2022. But it's at its very, very core, what separates the people who are able to complete an Ironman from those who fall short is the spiritual angle. And Ironman has a saying
Hmm.
that says, remember your why. And they ask you, even before you register for a race or start training, to think very, very deeply about why you want to do this. When you have a strong why, the how and the what become easy. Happiness for me, Ashu, is an inner scorecard. It is about living our most authentic life, just doing something that gives you joy in that moment.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to our episode of the Happiness Hour. I have someone very unique with me today, Nalin Moniz. He is a successful investor who's been managing money for 2 decades now as an entrepreneur and senior leader. Above all, he is a five-time Ironman, a marathon runner. His endurance and fitness are par excellence. A dad and husband who goes out of his way to support everybody. I mean, I've known him as a dear friend for a few years, and he whips us all into shape with, I think, just being the person he is. So, thank you, Nalin, for joining us today and look forward to our conversation.
Thank you, Ashu, for having me on. It's such a delight.
Nalin, you started out as an entrepreneur and have been working in the corporate world for many years. How was that transition for you?
So, Ashu, my dad uh, shared something very interesting earlier on in my career. He said that whether you are an employee or a promoter, you are an entrepreneur. Don't
Okay.
don't let your title or your shareholding change the intensity with which you approach a project, approach a business, approach people,
Hmm.
uh, and that one mental model and framework has held me in good stead, whether, I was running Forefront Capital as a founder, whether I was serving an earnout, and then subsequently working at Edelweiss, or even now at PPFAS Mutual Fund. Uh, Everybody is an entrepreneur. And I think in the age of AI, where companies are going to get smaller and smaller, businesses are going to get smaller and smaller because of the impact of technology, uh, if I can leave our listeners with this single idea, uh, it would be very powerful.
No, that's absolutely well said. It's the entrepreneur mindset that is more important than just, the job or the title.
Absolutely.
So, taking a different direction because you have two very strong sides to you, the Iron Man. What prompted you or inspired you to compete for the Iron Man?
So, Ashu, actually, this journey into endurance sports started fairly late. I didn't really play sports as a child, uh, and I really started running marathons in 2017. And I say running in quotes because I was largely walking uh, rather than even jogging, right? And uh, along that journey, so by 2019, Ashu, I had run a couple of full marathons. I had made some progress in my running journey. I was no longer walking. Uh, and I came across this idea of the hardest single day in sports, which is Ironman, right? And in an Ironman, in a full Ironman, you swim 3.8 kilometers in the sea or in a lake, then you bike 180 kilometers, and then you run a full marathon. Uh,
Okay, I'm
and
sweating it here just listening to you. So
and it sounds impossible for it just sounds impossible even when I describe it. Uh, but sometimes there is a big idea or a big dream that grips you, and you say that, look, I'm going to figure out a way to do this. I don't know how, when, or by what means, but I'm going to figure out a way to do this. So that one idea has gripped me since 2019,
Hmm.
and it actually took me, uh, you know, almost a better part of 3 years to get that dream done. I did my first Ironman in Israel in 2022, uh, and uh, the journey of how that actually came about is, I guess, the subject of this podcast.
Yeah, it's okay, so tell me, how has pursuing a sport or an endurance sport like Ironman transformed you internally? Because I'm sure it's a full inner shift that happens when you have to push yourself through such an intense day.
Yes. So Ashu, uh, you know, if when I described swimming 3.8 kilometers, biking 180 kilometers, and then running a full marathon, the first thing that comes to mind is this is a physical challenge. And yes, physicality and endurance is the table stakes, right? You can't attempt this unless you're a good swimmer, a good biker, and a reasonably good runner, right? Uh, if delve a little bit deeper, it is also a mental challenge
Yep.
because you've got to stay focused for 17 hours. And we live in an era where people struggle to focus on an Instagram reel for
Yep.
17 seconds, let alone do any single activity for 17 hours nonstop. But at its very core, so Ashu, the first thing that comes to mind when anybody describes an Ironman is that this is a physical challenge because, you are burning 8 to 10,000 calories in 17 hours of non-stop swimming, cycling, and running. If I delve a little bit deeper, you'll understand that this is actually a mental challenge because you've got to stay focused for an entire day from 7 in the morning till the clock strikes midnight. And we live in an era where people struggle to stay focused on an Instagram reel for 17 seconds,
So
let
true.
alone attempt to do anything for 17 hours back to back. But it's at its very, very core, what separates the people who are able to complete an Ironman from those who fall short is the spiritual angle. And Ironman has a saying
Hmm.
that says, remember your why. Remember your why,
Yeah.
right? Uh, and they ask you, even before you register for a race or start training, to think very, very deeply about why you want to do this. Is it to honor a loved one who you have lost? Is it to deal with a certain amount of pain or tragedy in your life? Is it to prove something to yourself? Right? Whatever that reason is, it is deeply personal and it is deeply spiritual, right? And they ask you to do that because in the hardest moments of that day, and there will be many hard moments. You have to dig deep onto that why. And when you have a strong why, the how and the what become easy.
Very profound, but very true. Uh, Ultimately, it's the why of something that really drives us and keeps us motivated and helps us, translate any dream into really a reality. And you've done it 5 times over and more, and you just keep going. Uh, Ironman, and obviously, when you're doing an Ironman, it's not about just that one day. It is
Yes,
it's like a full 1 year or how many ever months and days of practice, which then culminates into that one day. How do you keep yourself motivated, and what do you really do to keep your endurance at that level through the year?
right. So, Ashu, the thing that people don't appreciate about Ironman is that it is a lot of easy days in training, punctuated by the occasional hard workout, right? Uh, so when you're doing something for 17 hours, you cannot be fully gassed. You have to operate at a. So, Ashu, the thing that people don't appreciate about Ironman training is that it's a lot of volume of easy days punctuated by the occasional hard workout. Uh, and uh, that means two things. One is that you have to put in time and consistency. You can't cram your way to a race finish
Mm.
uh, in a couple of months. You need to build up that endurance over a period of time. And the other thing that people don't realize is that, you know, it's easier than it actually is,
Okay.
right? And no, I genuinely mean it because the the hard part is putting in a lot of easy work.
Okay, if you say so. All right. Um, so,
The other thing that's physically interesting, right, is that when you're doing three sports, the they actually complement each other, right? And let me explain why, right? Uh, when you swim, you're largely using your upper body. When you cycle, it's mainly your lower body, but a little bit of your upper body. And your when you're running, you use your lower body, right? So you're working different muscle groups. You're actually working opposing muscle groups. So, for example, when you cycle, you are predominantly using your quads. When you run, you're predominantly using your hamstrings, right? So there is an element of cross training, and you are actually working one muscle group when the opposing muscle group is resting. And that's how you're able to put it all together uh, and train almost every day.
okay, so there's a real science to develop building the body and getting it ready for this.
Absolutely. There is absolutely a science, Ashu, because, uh, and there has to be a science because, uh, you know, you will burn somewhere between 8,000 to 10,000 calories uh, in that day. That's probably what a normal human being burns in a entire week. Uh, but your liver cannot store more than 2 to 2,500 calories, right? So if you don't have a scientific method of how you will eat, how at what intensity you will race, uh, you'll never finish because you'll bonk and hit the wall before you even get probably halfway through the bike.
So
So
there's
there has to
obviously
be a science. There has to be a science to this.
so there's obviously a lot of mindfulness that comes into it.
Yes.
And, I'm sure, or let me ask you differently. How has this mindfulness supported you or translated to the rest of your life?
Right. So I think the first thing uh, I decided, Ashu, when I embarked upon this journey was that I need a good coach. Even Sir Edmund Hillary had Tenzing Norgay when he climbed Everest,
Mm.
right? Uh, Even the top cricketers, the top tennis players have a coach. So no matter how good you are or how big your aspiration is in life, recognize that there is a role for somebody to be a mentor and a guide for you. Uh, and that, that coach for me is Kosta Bradkar out of Pune, who has really become like an older brother to me. And uh, he has taken away the hard part of figuring out which workout to do on which day, right? Uh, and he has allowed me to focus my mental energies on just completing the task at hand. So, when we talk about mindfulness, we can't have our attention on 10 different things. A core part of mindfulness is saying that, look, I will focus on these one or two aspects that are very critical to me, and then I'll outsource the other eight.
Financial services and, carrying this thought forward of complementing sports, complementing skills, and so financial services and Ironman. Do they serve each other in any way?
I think they do, Ashu. Uh, so I'll go the easy one first, right? Uh, the Look, in any career, not just in financial services, you need to be planned, you need to be disciplined, uh, right? You need to have endurance, right? Uh, and it's often said, I often hear this at, corporate offsites, you know, this business is a marathon, it's not a sprint. And I often think to myself, does that person really know what they're talking about? Uh, right? Uh, because they've never even run one, right? So the process of planning, of putting building blocks together, that is so central to finally completing an Ironman is actually the core ingredient anybody needs to build any business.
Hmm.
Uh, and in particular, in the business that I'm in, we are long-term investors, right? We deal with uncertainty. Uh, and there is a beautiful saying in Ironman that translates very well to investing. The phrase is anything is possible. And I love that phrase because anything is possible speaks to both risk
Hmm.
and reward. It speaks to both hope and fear,
Interesting.
right? Uh, so it makes you reflect on what is the worst thing that could go wrong,
Hmm.
but also what's the best thing that could go right. Uh,
I
so
think
that's how Iron Man has, uh, you know, changed my trajectory as a professional. Uh, Now, coming the other way, this is a bloody expensive sport, right?
now comes the reality part. You've been very
Right? Uh, and pardon my language, but you know, the cycle, the equipment, uh, the training, the travel, right? All adds up to a pretty penny, right? So this is unfortunately not a sport that is easy for anybody to pick up, right? Uh, and hence having a sense of financial discipline to not go overboard uh, on expenditure uh, is absolutely vital. Uh, because at least cycles, Ashu, which is my passion, is a bottomless pit of money. There is almost no limit to what you can spend on a cycle. And you know, I have two, and my wife Radhika has said that, if I want a third, then I better find another wife.
Choice is very clearly laid out. It's
Yes.
like the dog and the man. Here it's your cycle and the wife. So I hear you loud and clear. It's time to, you know, as you're talking about, your love for the sport. I mean, there's just so much love you have for it. But I'm sure, and you've said there are some difficult moments as moments that you face as well. So could you share some moments that have been really worth the effort and some that have tested your endurance?
Right. So, Ashu, I will uh, share an experience uh, that you and I have lived through as friends, right? This was in April of 2024 at Ironman, Texas, right? And this was my fourth Ironman. So I wasn't doing this for the first time. I wasn't a babe in the woods, right? And about 20 kilometers into the 180-kilometer bike ride, I crashed on my cycle, uh, broke my shoulder, lost a front tooth, and my face was lacerated, right? I should have stopped right there and then, uh, but I chose to continue because I passed a concussion test that a roadside volunteer administered to me. I continued to bike on for 160 kilometers and then ran a marathon afterwards, right? Uh, and finally finished in some of the worst condition of my life at the end of that day, right? And then subsequently had to deal with the horror that is the US medical system to try and get treatment, right? Uh, and that's not a story that I'm proud about, Ashu, right? So actually, the one big thing that I learned from that experience is that while endurance is important, it's also very, very important to know when to stop, when to pull the plug, when to retreat, and when to say that this is not working for me. And the reason I continued that day, Ashu, as I reflect back, is that I forgot my why.
Ah,
I forgot my why. For me, my why is my family, my son Remy, and my mom was there in Texas that day. My brother, who lives in New York, had flown down to Houston. Uh, so they were there, and I thought that, you know, I wanted to make them proud that day. But actually, they weren't, because any mother or any brother would be pained to see a loved one in that kind of state, right? So when you are building a business, or when you're reaching for that big goal, I think a why pushes you to succeed, but the why also will remind you when enough is enough.
oh, a great reminder for all of us to be self-aware and know when to reconnect inside.
Yeah.
On that note, if I had, I'd like to ask you, what would be, you've had your journey of ups and downs, and you've had moments that have made you very proud of yourself and moments which have humbled you. How has your perspective of happiness evolved over the years?
So I think happiness for me, Ashu, is an inner scorecard. It is about living our most authentic life, right? And just doing something that gives you joy in that moment, right? Uh, a lot of people would find training for an Ironman absolutely boring, right? People crumble not because of the physicality of the training, but because of the boredom that sets in. I mean, how many mornings will you spend staring at a black line at the bottom of a pool, or, you know, looking at a wall as you cycle on a trainer indoors, or, uh, you know, lost in thought, running alone on the road early in the morning, right? Uh, but I find happiness in that emptiness. I find joy in nothing.
Mm.
And it's a weird thing to say, but that's who I am. And you know, each of us individually will find joy in different things. You may find joy in a bowl of ice cream, or you may find joy in a beautiful painting, or you know, a serene sunset. It's those, whatever gives you inner joy is the definition of happiness.
Yeah, so true that it is an inner state, and it is that state of stillness which we experience. And life is really a journey of expanding those moments of stillness and silence. And you sure are working hard at it every day and experiencing it time and again. And I think that's the addiction we all get. I want to have that state of being as many times as possible and as much as possible. Um, so this has been absolutely beautiful, Nalin. And
Thank you, Ashu. Thank
I
you for
think
having me
just
on.
hearing you talk about that serenity, it's literally like as if I feel I'm in that state right now. And I don't want to disturb it anymore for either of us. So, on this very, very happy note, I am going to say thank you very much and thank you for joining me. And I'm sure my listeners are going to as much enjoy what they've heard with from you today.
Thank you, Ashu.